So here's the entrance to my shop. It's a bit messy right now because I've been so busy, and I'm trying to make more room in here as well. As you can see, this is my work area over here. Eventually I'm going to clear out all the wood that's here and convert that into shop space as well, but that's going to take time. I'll do a better tour once everything's cleaned up, but I still keep the work areas really clean so you don't trip into anything. It's really hard to work when you're tripping over stuff. Anyways, today's Friday, August 6, 2010, and you're going to be watching video number 8 of Small Engines Questions and Answers. So again, today I've got a small lineup of questions to answer. Got 3 questions today. The first question is regarding the 12 horsepower Briggs & Stratton engine that is commonly found on lawn tractors. YouTuber sent me a question saying, I have a 12.5 horsepower Briggs & Stratton that when I started it acts like the choke is on and it is off, so it's running rich. No matter how I turn the set screw, it will just flood after about a minute, and it will fill up the carburetor with gas and goes into the engine through the breather tube. On top of that, gas will drip out of the exhaust. I've seen that before. I'm just going to compare it to this lawn tractor here. It's got a newer Briggs motor, 13.5 horsepower, which they don't have quite the same problem with their carburetors as you mentioned, but the carburetors are similar. Now, what happens with the carburetors is that the needle inside needs to be replaced, and sometimes even if you replace the needle and clean the seat, gas will still pour into the carburetor, work its way in the engine. It's going to create a hydraulic lock in the engine. You take the spark plug out, there's a whole bunch of gas spewing out, and gas will even come out of the muffler because it's so flooded. And what happens too is you got to check the oil when this happens, because your crankcase is going to get full of gas and the oil level is going to read higher than it is. The best way to remedy this, the simple way, is to buy a new needle and seat. You can start by just replacing the needle, but if you replace the seat as well, it's pressed in there on the older carburetors, probably on this one too, and there's a special way of removing the seat. So you could start by just replacing the needle. It's probably something anyone can do. See what happens after that. Also make sure that your float, if it's made of brass or even plastic, that it's not taking on fuel. So what you do is you take the float off, you shake it. If you hear fuel inside, it's no good. What's happening is it's allowing fuel to continually flow into the carburetor. What I've done in the past with really stubborn carburetors is I've installed an inline fuel valve like this, right approximately over here. And then when you're done with your machine, you can shut it off. You can shut it off till it runs dry every time if you want, then you're guaranteed it won't do that. Again, try to set your fuel mixture screw over here by tightening it in. You may have to remove the cap and turn in the screw. And if there's another screw, adjust it as well. But if it's flooding a lot, like I said, I would go with this, with the new needle in the carburetor and the seat there as well. My second question is regarding a Honda lawnmower, and this YouTuber asks me, can I remove the cylinder head off of an overhead valve Honda Mower engine to clean the valves and head without messing up the valve adjustments or push rod? The answer is yes, you can do this without messing up the valve adjustment. I'll just show you an older Honda engine to show you how that's possible. Well, here's an old Honda lawnmower engine that I took out just to show you. When you take the valve cover off, you're going to notice 2 13mm bolts inside here, and there's 2 13mm bolts on the sides of the head on the outside of the valve cover. If you remove these bolts and every other thing that is attached to the head, you should be able to lift the whole head with the valves and everything else attached without having to undo any of these nuts. If you undo these nuts here, you're more than likely going to throw off the adjustment of the valves. So just be careful doing that. Like I said, it is possible. Your gasket may be stuck to the cylinder when you pull it out. You may need to put a new head gasket when you put the head back on. Now the last question is regarding a home light grass trimmer that I've made videos of previously. He says, Don, I've got the exact same trimmer, and my problem is that the drive shaft gets so hot, it's melting the plastic spool. That's really hot. Any ideas as to why this might be happening? The trimmer, and I'll show you some scenarios that could be causing the end of your shaft to overheat to that extent. So here's the trimmer that we're talking about, the Homelite SX135. A lot of other Homelite trimmers will have the same parts on them, so this may apply to you as well. So what's happening to this YouTuber's trimmer is that the end of the shaft is getting so hot that it's melting the plastics. That's incredibly hot. They do get hot, you know, around here because there's a lot of friction in there, and that is normal, but it should not be melting the plastics. The cause of that could be that there's excessive loose inside the bushing and the shaft inside, and it could be causing a lot of heat. Also, there could be no grease left in there. There could be some grass trapped underneath here. It could just be plain worn out. The only way to know that would be to take off the head, follow the instructions in my previous video, and also check the cable, which I've made a video for that. If you don't see anything wrong, if it's not loose in here, clean it out, put a lot of grease in there, stick it back together, and it should be okay. Now, I've had a lot of questions regarding this old carburetor that I showed in a previous Q&A video, how to remove the float pin if it was stuck. Somebody asked me, would I even bother cleaning this carburetor to use it? Well, I may give it one shot to try to get it going, but if it was problematic after that, I would throw it out because it's corroded, it's been out in the rain. More than likely there's holes and passages inside the carburetor that I will never ever be able to clean, and it's not worth my time and aggravation. So the answer is I would give it one shot and that's it. Then I would pitch it. Well, thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you next Friday for the next Q&A video. In the meantime, keep your questions coming. I do have a whole pile of them that I printed, so I'll get at them slowly. And thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.